I'm a big, huge, dumb Sonic fan. I love Sonic to pieces, and I've almost religiously played every 3D Sonic game to S-rank perfection. I even bought a sub to the Apple Arcade for Sonic Dream Team. I've seen this franchise at its worst and best, and I've celebrated its every victory and failure. So I want to be forthcoming and say that, well, Shadow Generations does pretty much nothing wrong. As iterative artwork goes, it's a peak example. It looks at its past, takes the hard lessons to heart, and improves on every available facet of its predecessors with near flawless precision. To start with the story, the writing here is exceptional. Much like Frontiers, it pays reverent homage to everything Sonic stands for, as a character and a franchise, and it also understands Shadow's character immaculately, and it's good to see his stoic and strong-hearted nature back in full swing with a properly sentimental story. This game expertly recontextualizes and reintegrates concepts from both generations and the greater Sonic canon, while also taking the opportunity to expand on the characterization of Gerald and Maria. If you're not a Sonic freak, that may not mean anything, but basically the writing is as respectful as it possibly could be. As for the themes, well, they're the usual. Shadow's stories are always a question of who am I? He feels incomplete, wonders about his true nature, and he has to contend with various forces pulling on him, laying claim to both his body and future. These themes were explored best in Shadow's standalone game, Shadow the Hedgehog, which is a superior story to Shadow Generations in almost every respect. It profoundly explored Shadow's psychology, questions of agency, identity, how much value our past plays in our present, and how much of our heart and mind belong to the world around us. Who even are we if not the reflections we see in others? Despite all its powerful penmanship, Shadow Generations doesn't even come close to capturing Shadow the Hedgehog's existential gravitas. And it begs the question, why all this again? Why are we hyper-focusing on Shadow's past again? Why is this another story about Black Doom and Project Shadow and the question of who's truly the ultimate life form? Can we please put that to rest? Remember the final scene of Shadow the Hedgehog, where Shadow himself put that to rest? When Sonic Frontiers asked us to envision bold new directions for the franchise and Sega teased standalone Shadow content, is this really what anyone had in mind? I understand the game takes place, at least in part, in the past, but that doesn't mean you have to rewind the character development to match. Thankfully, the gameplay fares much better than the storytelling, which, as established, is still a high bar. Shadow Generations introduces a boatload of substantial new powers that require real skill to master. They all feel seamlessly integrated into the core platforming, and swiftly switching between them to attain maximum flow is delightful. This feels more like a sequel to Colors than Generations, with the way Shadow shifts between states and abilities to traverse his environment. The game feel is also exceptional, acting as a natural evolution of Frontier's cyberspace stages. Also, the 2D levels got a major glow up. The spacing of hazards is more generous, but not too forgiving, while the dynamic camera angles allow you a better view of the level layout and make the whole thing feel more organic. These barely feel like 2D platforming, they feel more like a 3D platformer with 2D gameplay. The transition is very smooth. Even the challenge missions and hub area are altogether improved, with the former feeling more substantial and genuinely challenging as opposed to their generation counterparts. And the hub area is a straight up collectathon, including tons of secrets and platforming gauntlets that require genuine curiosity and skill to discover. Look, overall, Shadow Generations is great. It thoughtfully improves on everything which needed improvement, and although it's no Shadow the Hedgehog 2, we don't really need a Shadow the Hedgehog 2. Hopefully next time my favorite edgy antihero appears, he's doing something new with his life, but this is still worth celebrating.